Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the P-LotPodcast. I'm your host, John Angelillo, and I'm joined by my cousin, Michael
Like,
Angelillo. Now, you're probably noticing that someone's missing.
yeah,
Our other co-host, Ethan, right now is just
he's taking a
disposed at
quiz.
the. He's taking a quiz. He's disposed at the moment. However, he'll be joining us later on in the show when we talk Eagles. So, Michael, how you doing? How's college? How's the
College is going well. Had a couple papers this week, but for the most part, it's not too bad yet. But I'm having a good time. Happy that I'm still on campus, one of the few schools in the area to be on campus.
Well, do you know who's not having a good time right now?
Who's not having a good time?
That would be Matt Klentak.
Yeah, he stinks.
So he had a Zoom conference with the media earlier this week, and I feel like this hasn't been talked about enough because this might be like one of the worst press conferences I think he's ever had. Normally,
Probably.
when he speaks to the media, it's never good. But
It's
by that
always
I mean
bad.
he's always bringing bad news. So he said two things that I really brought my blood to a boil. The first one is when he refused to commit long term to JT Realmuto. That was really because he kept referring to him in the past tense. He wasn't saying, "Oh, he's
Hmm.
doing great for us this year." We don't have any contract negotiations lined up right now, but when the season's over, we plan to speak to his agent. He didn't say anything like that. He
No.
was just talking about him like, "Oh, yeah, he was a great player." Like in the past, while he's still
Yeah,
playing on the team,
he was talking about him like he was already gone at this point. Like it was very unsettling for us Phillies fans.
and he brought him up when he was asked about Sixto Sanchez. Now he had to have known with Sixto Sanchez pitching as well as he has for the Marlins that he was going to be asked this because he
Hmm.
traded him away.
Right.
And his answer was, "Oh, he pitched. He seemed very like flustered. He's like, oh, he pitched great against us. He's a good player, but like we got 2 years out of JT Realmuto." And when he said that, it just angered me because I went on like I went on Twitter and posted a little video. I was like, Matt Klentak, with all of your advanced statistics and all of your equations and all the stuff you use with analytics, you still don't understand basic math.
Right.
What's greater, six or two?
Obviously six.
So obviously six. So the Phillies would have had Sixto Sanchez for 6 seasons under team control before he's a free agent, and he's slam dunking that trade because we got JT Realmuto for 2 years. Well,
For two great years.
it
That's
doesn't make sense. That
bizarre.
trade in hindsight made no sense unless you were going to re-sign JT Realmuto.
Of course.
Because at that time the Phillies were not a World Series contender. They did not sign Bryce Harper.
No,
I
they tried
don't
to do it to get Bryce Harper because he's his best friend, one of his best friends.
exactly. It was used as a way to entice him.
Right.
And the idea of Harper signing the contract he signed was so the Phillies would have more flexibility adding payroll, which I think we all assumed at the time was, oh, you got to re-sign JT Realmuto, you want
Of
to add a
course.
pitcher and another player. So when he was talking about that trade, it's like either we had the wrong impression or he just doesn't know what he's doing.
I want to hope it's the latter. I think it is the latter. Like the fact that he just doesn't know what he's doing. He's parading around the two great seasons that the best catcher in baseball had, which is expected. We knew he was going to have two great seasons, and he, in fact, exceeded our expectations. And the fact that he couldn't just go out there and said, he's a great player for us. We're really going to try to get him back this offseason. We're going to almost do whatever it takes just to make the fans feel a little better about it. But the fact that he's talking about it like he just got signed elsewhere, like, oh, we got two great years out of JT. He's like, we want him in pinstripes next year, but it's just so phony and so fake the way he talks to us, and it's almost like he's admitting defeat that, trading away your best prospect, who's the next coming of Pedro Martinez, for a catcher that you're not going to be able to re-sign.
And by the way, that's not hyperbole what you just said.
No.
That's what Pedro Martinez said on, I believe it was ESPN or MLB Network.
MLB Network, or maybe. He
MLB
said
Network.
he said he's me with better stuff. Like, are you kidding me? With better stuff.
So, yeah, that really angered me because, I mean, if he's supposed to be this savvy young general manager, you don't trade away a pitching prospect of Sixto Sanchez's caliber for anyone. Like, even like Mike Trout, you don't even do that. That's like a
especially
big
with this
no-no.
team's pitching woes. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's what it blew my mind, too, was when you look at this team's pitching issues. I mean, you looked at Jake Arrieta, like, you thought Jake Arrieta was going to, like, rebound? I suppose he did because, I mean, you're paying him like he's an ace, but he's not.
Exactly. And then the whole, Vinny Velasquez and Nick Pivetta experiments that failed, like, you hope that maybe you would keep the young guaranteed stud.
So that obviously upset us. But here's another thing that really angered me was when he was talking about the Phillies as if they were already in the postseason. He was talking about how they were going to set up the rotation. He's talking, and I'm like, dude, you didn't lock a playoff spot up yet.
No, and especially losing 3 or 4 to the freaking Nationals, you're really you need help now. You don't control your own destiny. You need help.
Yeah, and Klentak reminds me. There's a movie in the 90s. It's called The Cooler. It stars Alec Baldwin and William H. Macy.
Okay.
You probably know William H. Macy from the show Shameless. He's the main character.
Oh, is he Frank?
Yeah. So William H. Macy's character. So literally, his character is he goes to all these like poker tables or whatever because he's such a gigantic mush. The guys that are winning all these hands, he's a cooler. He causes them to like start losing because he's such bad luck. And when Klentak opened his mouth again, I was like, he's the cooler. He kills any fun or enjoyment that you're having.
Mushes anything with this team.
He's such a mush. Like, you should just shut up. Like, why would you when you're asked about the postseason? It's real simple. And this is from like someone who's a journalism major who also has experience with public relations and how to handle public things. This is all he had to say was, "Oh, I don't want to talk about the postseason at this time. Whatever happens, happens."
Yeah, like I hope we get in. Exactly, nothing
simple. But no, he's so arrogant that the Phillies making the postseason, even in this freak show of a season with 60 games,
and we're like everybody who's decent gets in the playoffs now.
Yeah, with 8 teams making it instead of 5. He's probably walking around like, we're in the playoffs. Oh, look how great I am,
Exactly.
And like, dude, you're about to they are trailing a team that was projected to lose 100 games, whose manager was fired from here last year. Like,
it's incredible. I mean, I have, Corey Seidman wrote a nice article for NBC Sports Philadelphia about not the whole weekend, what needs to happen, but pretty much, especially today for the Phillies to make the playoffs. They got a 3-game set against the number 1 seed in the American League, the Tampa Bay Rays, which you get an advantage because they're 2 games up on they're 2 games up on the Twins and 2.5 up on the A's. So they're not, they need to win 1 game to officially clinch to get in, but it's likely that they're going to hold on to the 1 seed. They're not playing for a ton, which is helpful. So they might, either bench some good players or not. But Phillies have Vinny Velasquez going tonight with Wheeler tomorrow and Aaron Nola on Sunday. Those Wheeler and Nola games, they have to win. Those are must-lock wins. And tonight would be huge because you're setting up for a sweep with your 2 best pitchers. Now, Corey Seidman talked about there's a Padres-Giants doubleheader today. The Padres are locked into the 4 seed, so they don't have a ton to play for, and the Giants have their lives to play for. if the Padres sweep the doubleheader today, because they do have their two best starters going in Lamet and Chris Paddock. If the Padres sweep today and the Phillies win, that will put the Phillies one game up on the Giants. Therefore, if there's a split and the Phillies win, they're tied for probably the 8th seed as the end at the end of today. Then the Phillies do have the tiebreaker over the Giants because the tiebreaker is like division record, and the Phillies do have a better division record than the Giants do at this point. The other game he talked about was the Marlins Yankees. They're finishing the season on a 3-game set. The Yankees do have stuff to play for because they're 2 behind the White Sox and only 2 up on the Blue Jays. So they're going to try to obviously win to move up a spot and at least not let the Blue Jays catch them. The Marlins have the head-to-head tiebreaker against the Phillies, obviously, which is terrible, but they do. If the Phillies sweep the series against the Rays, the Marlins have to go 1-2 or worse in order for them to leapfrog and move into the second place spot in the NL East, which clinches a playoff spot because the top 2 teams in each division make it. If the Phillies go 2-1 this weekend, the Marlins have to be swept by the Yankees, which, you would think is a pretty easy feat. But then when you watch a team like the Braves lose last night to the Marlins, and the Marlins just for some reason play so much better than they are, you can only hope for the best with them because they're just so much better than everyone expected.
Yeah,
It makes no sense.
yeah. And just adding on to what you were saying there too, like, oh, you would think this would happen. They're just in baseball. They've only played 60 games so far. You don't hit
Yeah.
your stride as a team until like game 80 or game 90,
Around even 100 sometimes.
even 100. So there's still guys that are still like getting hot. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, because you look how kind of crazy the postseason is.
It's
Like,
crazy.
if they played 162 games, you think the Nationals would have kind of gotten out of their funk that they're in right now and
They
maybe made a
probably
playoff push?
they maybe at least wouldn't be as terrible as they've been. I mean, we saw it last year. They were so bad and took it all the way to the World Series.
So yeah, like this is why I'm kind of like I think with the playoffs, I'm looking at baseball. I think the reason I'm not as excited for them is because you kind of have teams that before COVID would like be
They
like,
don't
there's
belong.
no way the Blue Jays are making the
Yeah,
playoffs.
no way the Marlins make the playoffs.
Exactly. Or the Giants.
Of
You
course, or
know,
the Giants.
the
It's
Padres might have
being,
been
but
a
maybe not as good as they are.
yeah, they would have been like, oh, that'd have been a cool team to follow and like, game 155 if they're like a game out of the wild card, we
Exactly.
don't know.
Man, now they're the
So
4 seed locked in.
yeah, and now it's going to be
Pretty
like this
impressive.
every year with the playoffs. So you're going to have eight teams represent each league. So like we're kind of talking about this as an aside. Like, do you think the playoffs are just greatly cheapened?
I mean, I think that making the playoffs this year, I think it's the must. I think that it isn't as big of a deal because they are letting a bunch of teams in. So, like, if the Phillies sneak in as an 8th seed on the final day, it shouldn't be, oh, Klentak saved his job. This team got in the playoffs. Like, you didn't get in a normal circumstance playoffs, and you barely got in anyways.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this like basketball and hockey, teams that get the A seed in the playoffs and then just get swept, like
Right.
the coach and the GM are on the hot seat, and the guy that seat is the most hot in the Phillies organization is it's probably two. It's Andy McPhail and Matt Klentak.
It has to be those two.
Because what's going to wind up happening is I don't know McPhail's contract status for next year, but John
Well, they
Middleton might.
both got 3-year extensions. Him and Klentak got the same 3-year extension after they signed Harper.
But like, how much are they making really? Like, if you
I'm not
fire them?
sure how much it is, but that's the thing. Middleton should have no problem firing them, but he's a guy that doesn't really like to admit his mistakes. So I'm not sure if he did. I
Probably,
really hope
yeah.
he doesn't want to hang on for the end of their contracts.
So speaking of Klentak overall, I saw somebody tweet this week. I forget who it was. I'm sorry. I should have made note of this. But they brought up a really good point about Matt Klentak. He said that no general manager has ever been handed a more stacked farm system along with an open payroll. Klentak was literally given a clean slate with the Phillies.
He really
And
was.
you and when you look at their lack of success, it's really mind-boggling because like I'm gonna throw some names out to you. About 5 years ago, the hope of this organization was that like where they are now, you would have guys like Jorge Alfaro, J.P. Crawford, Nick Williams, Jake Thompson were going to be mainstays with this team.
Awful.
And all of them are no longer with the organization. And they regressed so much when they got to the big leagues, the Phillies could hardly get anything for them. Like they outright released Nick Williams and Jake Thompson. And then with Alfaro and J.P. Crawford, they were throw-ins in other trades. Like when they
Right.
got Gene Segura, they threw in J.P. Crawford
Crawford.
to the Mariners. And when you look
Okay.
at obviously, excuse me, Jorge Alfaro, he was the throw-in for the.
The
Sorry.
JT Real Muto trade.
Yes, thank
I
you,
got it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ethan. Sorry, folks. Ethan just messaged me, and he's ready to come on. So I'm gonna send him an invite to the show,
Here we go. I got it.
and hopefully he can join us soon. So hold on 1 second, folks. Okay, cool. He should be joining soon. But wrapping up our Phillies talk, look, I think Klentak is. Hold on. I want to add Ethan to the
All
podcast.
right.
Hold on one
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. I
Ethan,
definitely. What's up, Ethan?
What's going on?
how you doing? We're just wrapping up about our friend Matt Klentak.
Oh yeah, good friend of ours. Yeah, plenty to say about that beloved human being here.
Yeah, so so Michael and I were just talking about how Matt Klentak was handed a literal clean slate with a deep farm system and payroll flexibility. No one was locked into a long-term contract like a year after he was hired. And you look at the state of the team where they have a bloated payroll, they don't have a farm system they can draw upon. And you look at all the holes on this team, it's so baffling. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like if they hired another general manager, can he right the ship quickly enough where they can still take advantage of Bryce Harper if they re-sign Real Muto, guys like Segura, if they re-sign Didi? Is that a possibility?
I think 100% it's a possibility. I think you're only 4 or 5 small to medium moves away from really putting yourself into some serious contention. I mean, you as we've said, a ton of times, this offense is elite. You have a very good rotation. Could add another, 4th or 5th starter that help you out, significantly. But I mean, there's no excuse that this team shouldn't be here right now. I mean, Matt Klentak was basically bullied into signing Bryce Harper. He wanted to sit on, he wanted to sit on this team for another whoever knows how many more years. You really need to get someone to establish a winning, attitude into this ball club because, I mean, it's taken way too long at this point.
Yeah. I just want someone from one of the smart organizations, like the Rays. Like, give me someone from the Rays because the Rays, one of those, they don't spend any money and all they do is just compete and find complete studs, pitching, hitting, low name guys that just play way much better than you would expect because the Rays find them and they develop them. Get me someone from the Rays.
With a very low payroll as well.
Exactly. And now they have a payroll.
Right.
Yeah, I think the Phillies, I mean, the guy available right now, I mean, if they were to get a quote unquote big name to up the to be their team president, I mean, Dave Dombrowski, because he's, had been very successful. I don't know what's going to happen with Theo Epstein in Chicago. If, things have been tenuous
He's
with
screwing
him
up
there.
over there too.
We don't know what's going on with that.
I mean, they're in a playoff spot, but yeah.
But like that whole Chris Bryant situation, not figuring out that contract.
Could they look to the Dodgers to maybe one of their executives below Andrew Friedman, like the Giants did when they hired Farhan Zahadi?
Yeah, and that's you see, as much as we all have tooled on Gabe our fair share, has the team in a playoff spot. And let's make no mistake, it's not because of Gabe that much, but you see what Gabe is doing with like not a great team, but the general manager put together good enough pieces in order to be they're not good, but as good as they are. And you see how important a general manager is for a team.
And I'll make this my last point before we move on to the Eagles. When Gabe was the manager of the Phillies his first year here, I think at this point in the season, the Phillies were like quite a few games above 500. And under this current format of the postseason, the Phillies might have been like a 2 or a 3 seed.
Yeah.
So at this point, our opinions of Gabe at that time would have been, oh, he's weird, but they're winning games,
right,
and that's all that matters.
Well, that's
Where
what
obviously
it was
now
the first 2 seasons.
after 2 straight collapses, then it's like it's like Gabe's not up to the task. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if the Giants do make the playoffs, they probably get swept. Whatever. No
that's the
big
team
deal.
that nobody projected to be anywhere near the playoffs, though. I mean,
Agreed.
They thought Marlins and Giants would be at the bottom of the National League. Look at them.
So I want to get into the Eagles, and before we do this week's game against the Bengals, I want to talk about last week's game because I think it's very critical we go look at last week's game and we try to look at that to project the rest of the season. Now, Michael, when you look at the Eagles' struggles from this past game, where do you think most of the blame lies?
Most of the blame, I don't know. I think everyone on the team is really deserving of blame. The offensive line really woke up last week and was very solid, and that was pretty much the only thing that was solid throughout the entirety of the game. I think a lot of blame goes to Jim Schwartz in the defense. A lot of blame goes to Carson Wentz. And, I think also a decent amount of blame has to go to Doug Peterson as well. And all of this is encompassed by Howie Roseman in charge. I think everyone's to blame for the debacles the last 2 weeks.
I agree. Ethan?
So I think we're going to go back to the topic of preparation because we saw exactly what we saw in week 1, and this team was not prepared. They started out the game with a fumble. I mean, I don't really know how else you can start much worse than that. Carson Wentz again looked, almost timid at times. I mean, he was missing, easy third down throws. That interception he threw to Ortega in the end zone. I mean, you're moving the ball. He makes a bad mistake. The defense played utterly horrific. I mean, Jared Goff, of all people, went, I think, 13 of 13 to start that game. Jim Schwartz didn't throw – I don't think he threw a blitz in the first half. I mean, it's just an all-around. It just seemed like they woke up and they just, let's go to the Lincoln, lose another game. I mean, it didn't seem like a team that was prepared in any sense.
Yeah, I think everything points you both guys just made are exactly right. I think they're exactly right. So I fortunately and unfortunately, so friend of the show, Gino Petrasso, if you're listening, what's up, man? How you doing? We watched game film of Eagles Rams yesterday. And from what I watched, it was very bizarre. Because when you look at the Eagles defense on paper, you would have thought that the defensive line struggled because they didn't generate a lot of pressure and they only had 1 sack.
They were gashing them for big runs.
But when we were watching tape, it was very fascinating because like Malik Jackson was getting double teamed and Fletcher Cox was getting double teamed, and they were crashing the A gap and the B gap. But the Rams were still getting 4 or 5 yards a carry because the linebackers just played so terribly, specifically Nate Gary. Now, Duke Riley is an average player at best. That's probably me being generous saying that.
Special teams player, yeah.
But Nate Gary looked so lost. Like, when you watch the tape, and, fellow listeners, if you have NFL Game Pass and go back, if you watch the tape, it's like the flow of the game, it's like Nate Gary's like at least a half a second slow to react to almost everything that's happening on the field. And when you look at this defense, Jim Schwartz's defense is built to stop the run. And the Eagles gave up 190 yards on the ground against the Rams. That's unacceptable. Because if you're going to stop a Sean McVay offense, it's not letting them control the game and not letting them gash you for big runs. This happened with Gurley was the running back. Now the Rams are back to like a running back by committee with Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers. But they're still effective at running the ball. You saw it against the Cowboys. They ran all over them against the Cowboys. They ran all over the Eagles. They want to dominate time possession and limit Goff's chances to make mistakes because that was the big problem last year. Goff led the NFL in turnovers by a quarterback.
It was a ton.
So Sean McVay knew that. So what did he do? He ran the ball first, second down almost every drive. They got 3 or 4 yards every drive. So now Jared Goff only has to convert a 3rd and 4 or a 3rd and 3, much easier than 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 if the Eagles run, if the linebackers showed up to play last week. And that's why they struggled so much on defense. I don't think Darius Slay played well. I don't think the safeties played particularly poorly. It was just like when you watch the first touchdown to Higbee, they run a play action counter to the left side, and the Eagles' defensive line crashes to that side like they should. But then Nate Gary's just standing there, and he kind of steps towards the hole. But then Higbee's running by, and he sees Higbee running, and he's like, oh, wait, this is actually play action, and then he's totally late on it.
Yeah. Gary had an awful game. Awful game.
And as much as we're just hammering Nate Gary right now, the blame lies on Howie Roseman. Because since he took over, he always had semi-decent linebackers. He had Jordan Hicks and Nigel Bradham.
Signing him,
And you go from those two to like Nate Gary and Duke Riley, that's a major downgrade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you saw with Jim Schwartz this week was, I had a bad game plan. I think what you kind of wanted to say was, I probably expected my linebackers to do too much, so I'm going to have to dumb this down for them, or I'm going to have to play more nickel and more dime and get, Kayvon Wallace on the field or get TJ Edwards and limit the amount of mistakes I can get out of Nate Gary.
I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at how LJ Fort's playing. You look at how Jordan Hicks is playing. You look at how, even Joe Walker last year on the Cardinals was playing. I mean, these guys, like LJ Fort was the starting linebacker in a 14-2 Ravens team. I mean,
forced a fumble last Sunday.
Forced a fumble. Cameron Grugier-Hill, not like he was such a stud over here. He had a sack against
a big sack yesterday.
I mean, it just seems you let go of a lot of talent on the linebacker core, and to end up with, Duke Riley, Nate Gary.
Nate Gary stinks. I mean, he's really bad. And you look at the long touchdown to Higbee after the Goff rollout, he just completely bites on the run way too much, and Tyler Higbee just rolls right on by him, and he's chasing him down the whole field. It's an easy pitch and catch that makes Goff look so much better than he actually is. I mean, the Rams, the way they run their offense is when it's like a college offense where it's like the same look every time. It's, under center, and here comes a receiver in motion, and it's either, an end around, play action, run play. It's the same look every time. And the Eagles just looked like they had no idea how to stop it. And what was really concerning is that in the post game, when Rodney McLeod was asked, he said, were the things the Rams were doing, was that unfamiliar to you guys? And he said, it was identical to what we practiced. I feel like we started to chase plays rather than be in the moment and trust in one another consistently. So the fact that they knew what was going to happen and still got completely shredded is a huge cause for concern. And I don't know if that's because, we know it's because the linebackers stink. I don't know if Malcolm Jenkins not being here also has a big reason to it. It's just very concerning.
Yeah, going back to Nate Gary, I mean, we just saw this guy, we were talking about, I guess, last week that this guy had the game of his career, maybe.
Yeah.
And you come out like this, I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Complete 180.
I think it's fair to put a lot of blame on Nate Gary because he played 100% of all the snaps on defense last week. Mm-hmm. Only him and Rodney McLeod did that.
Yeah, I'm looking at this.
And I heard you mention Malcolm Jenkins, and I know a lot of fans are like, "Oh, good thing they let go of Malcolm Jenkins because he stunk against the Raiders on Monday night." It's not so much the fact they let Malcolm Jenkins go; it's more about they didn't have another safety in the pipeline ready to step up to replace him.
No, it was converting Jalen Mills was the idea.
And it kind of goes to me, I feel like if we're to blame anyone for this 0-2 start, I'm putting it on Howie. I'm putting it on Howie because of how bad the linebacker situation is. Like, here, I'm going to give you an example here for a second. So, two of the starting linebackers for the Bengals, the team the Eagles are playing this week, by the way, in case you're waking up from a coma, is Logan Wilson and Akeem Davis Gaither. Both of those guys are rookies starting for them this week. The Eagles had chances to draft both those guys, and especially Akeem Davis Gaither, because Davion Taylor can't play on defense.
Yeah.
So, it's like Howie is like, oh, what did we do when Andy Reid was here 15 years ago? Oh, they didn't really invest in linebackers, so we're not doing that. Well, they invest in linebackers because Jim Johnson's defense, kind of helped mask some of those problems. Jim Schwartz's defense relies heavily on linebackers. So it's like there's this disconnect and an arrogance, like, oh, we don't need this position.
Right.
And I think as we go along and preview this Eagles-Bengals game, we're going to see about positions the Eagles are sorely lacking in. Now, is there anything else you guys want to talk about from last week in regards to the defense, or can we move on to Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson?
I think we can move on.
Move on?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess we can move on.
So the main topic I've seen this week with Carson Wentz is his mechanics. Now, what are your guys' thoughts on his mechanics? Is this obviously is an issue, but do you feel like it's being overblown?
Me personally, we know when he's at his best is out of the pocket. And when he's in the pocket, he's not nearly as good as when he's out of it. That's never a good thing to be. I feel like you'd rather your quarterback be better in the pocket. So I guess that probably is a mechanics issue that I guess DeFilippo was a lot more important than we thought. And Press Taylor can't get the most out of him from inside the pocket, I guess it's a pretty big problem. Some of the throws he misses from just inside the pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw. Sorry, Ethan, go ahead.
Okay. So looking back at I agree with what Michael said as far as getting him out of the pocket. He's a significantly better quarterback when he's on the move and making throws, but that doesn't give him an excuse to just, consistently put this team into bad situations with some of these, easy makeable throws. I mean, I recall one or two throws that he missed Zach Ertz on a 3rd and 5 on a little out route that stalled the drive in the first half of the game. And he threw that one ball high to Goddard that could have gotten him closer to the end zone. I mean, it's just I really don't know why it's like this. I just feel like he tries to do too much. I mean, he instead of just he's very hyper. You just gotta he's just gotta calm down and make some of these throws a little bit easier on himself instead of trying to do too much. I mean, as I was looking back at this game, one of the big things that shocked me was the time of possession. The Rams had 31 minutes. The Eagles had 28. So
not that big of a disparity,
right? Not at all. And the big difference is that the Eagles had 3 turnovers to the Rams 1, and 2 of those turnovers were on Carson Wentz. So no matter how bad that defense played, it was a winnable ball game, and I think a lot of the blame falls on Carson.
Yeah, and my thing on the mechanics are, just before we move on, I think it's overblown because we've seen other elite quarterbacks have wonky mechanics. Like Aaron Rodgers doesn't have perfect mechanics, or Russell
You're
Wilson
right.
doesn't have perfect mechanics. But, they're throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns every game, so why are you going to give them a hard time over it? Not
Yeah.
saying that Wentz needs sloppy mechanics to be successful, but so what you said, Ethan, what you said is, mechanics aren't going to solve him throwing in a triple coverage.
Right.
Like, that's not. I mean,
That's not mechanics.
you can have perfect mechanics and then still do that. Now, I've just pulled up an article on my computer here. It says this is from Jeff McClain earlier this month. It says already an elite NFL quarterback, Carson Wentz worked in offseason to improve his mechanics. Now, I can't get the article because of the paywall behind it, but I do recall people talk about Wentz working on his mechanics in the offseason. Now, do you think it's a possibility that because of the lack of OTAs and an abbreviated training camp and no preseason, if he's working on new mechanics, this could be a reason why he's struggling? Because I don't think working on your mechanics necessarily means they're going to be better. Like, I know I'm comparing apples to oranges here, but when you look at earlier in the season, the Philly season with Reese Hoskins, about how bad he was,
Yeah, exactly.
he changed his swing. So he's obviously trying to adjust for it. And I'm not saying every person that does this, there's going to be positive results, but like I saw Liam Jenkins on Twitter of Philadelphia Sports Network posted 2 clips. One of Carson Wentz against the Cardinals in 2017, where he's doing a 5-step drop out of a shotgun and he steps up in the pocket and makes the throw. And he took another clip against the last week against the Rams, where he kind of does like he does like a 2-step and then hops back and then overthrows Zach Ertz. I think it's the play you just mentioned, Ethan,
Yeah.
on 3rd down. And I'm watching it, and like Wentz had like 5 seconds and a perfectly clean pocket to throw in the first clip. And the second clip, I don't know who number 50 is on the Rams, but he's literally about to take Jason Peters and throw him into Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this whole mechanics thing is overblown. And if he is working on his mechanics, you're just gonna have to be patient, I suppose. Now, bring this to Doug Peterson. Do you think Doug needs to run the ball more, like maybe run like 50-50 while Wentz is working out his struggles, and maybe call plays to maybe attack the shallow part of the field to, kind of build his confidence up?
I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I think Miles Sanders, I think he had a really good game despite the fumble. I know you can't just like ignore that because it really did change the whole game, but I think he had a really good game, and you saw how much better the running game was with him in there. I think you got to really rely heavily on him. And then when you do throw the ball, you really got to just try to get him out of the pocket. That's when he's most comfortable rolling and moving around and throwing to the tight ends. That's when he is most comfortable and where this team needs to be at offensively in order to win games.
Ethan?
So going back to just, Carson Wentz for a second, my biggest issue is that, just like we were talking about, he's got clean protection and he's missing those throws. So I think Doug Peterson, first of all, called a significantly better game plan than he did against the Redskins, against the Washington football team. I just think that I think that game plan would have led to a win if Carson just made a few more throws. I mean, I think that Miles Sanders was running the ball real well. You could have maybe ran it, 5 to 8 more times to stabilize everything. But I think that if you go in with the same, on the offensive side, the same type of game plan, because you didn't really see Carson go deep. I don't think you really saw him go deep once.
Yeah.
Deep once. Not one.
He didn't take many deep shots down the field.
Not at all.
Watching some of the tape, like there were plays where I think Deshaun Jackson beat Jalen Ramsey.
Right.
And all Carson's got to do is just, gun the ball down the field, like, past the defender, and there's no risk of an interception.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what the Eagles have to work on is, at least in my opinion, when you have a guy that's struggling, like in any sport, instead of it's like just having like your best player in basketball, if he's struggling making shots, don't have him shoot 35 shots. Have him take easy shots, or baseball, short your swing. I think with Carson Wentz, I think what the Eagles need to do is, like what you said, Michael, is get him out of the pocket and just have him hit those easy crossers or lay off or screens. Because a lot of people think, oh, he's missing easy throws. Like, do you remember earlier this week when Jimmy Kempski said to Doug Peterson, "Oh, why is Carson missing so many easy throws?" And Doug got really ticked off at him and said, "It's like, have you ever
I
played
remember
quarterback in the NFL?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Then there's no easy throws."
that. Exactly. Yeah, I remember that. I did see Doug snap at him a little bit.
Well, Carson Wentz's completion percentage this year on like what are called like short passes is 80%. It's where he's struggling is the middle to the deep part of the field, which is like the reverse of last year. Last year he struggled a lot on shorter throws, but it was those medium to deep balls where he was performing well, like up until all the injuries happened when they had to use practice squad players.
Right.
So what I'm I think we're at an impasse here with Doug and Carson is Doug's going to have to change his philosophy of a pass first offense. He's going to have to look at it like, all right, I need Miles to get 20 to 25 touches. Boston Scott needs 10 to 12, and I'm going to need Corey Clement to give me 5 to 7.
Yeah.
And we're just going to figure out these to be, with our running backs in the passing game, because with Jalen Rieger out for an unknown period of time, the latest is November, and the earliest is like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if I've read that correctly. Jalen Rieger seems to be a quick healer, but I don't know because he just went under the knife.
Yeah.
This whole we're gonna lean on J-Jaw thing that Doug said today. Yeah, that's coach speed. I don't really think he's gonna lean on a guy who has less receptions than DK Metcalf has touchdown catches.
Yeah, I saw an article today, a pretty funny one from Victor Williams. He sent out, what do I expect from J-Jaw on offense this week, and the article was blank. So that's pretty much what I'm expecting from him as well.
That's great.
Actually a good one.
And I think what we're going to see from the Eagles wide receiver Sunday, I think you're going to see a lot of targets go to Deshaun Jackson. You're going to see Hightower get involved more. And I think you're going to see Greg Ward involved a lot more, because Greg Ward didn't play that much this past Sunday.
Not at all.
The Eagles are running.
I was surprised.
The Eagles are running 12
personnel.
Yeah, the Eagles are running 12 personnel 75% of the time through 2 games, which only lends more credence to me saying run the ball.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before we move on to Eagles Bengals? Because I think I heard one of you guys brought up Press Taylor.
Yeah, Michael.
Michael, you brought up Press Taylor, and I looked up what Press Taylor does, and he seems to be more of a guy that's more concerned about, drawing up like certain schemes or certain plays, as opposed to just being more of a fundamentals guy. And do you think the Eagles, we look at their power scores, they have Rick Scangarello there, they have Marty Morningleg there, Press Taylor. Is there just too many guys there that have these like floating titles, or do we need to have something they did in 2017 where Reich's the offensive coordinator and D. Filippo's the quarterback's coach? Like, it's clearly spelled out. I
like having distinct roles for these guys. You look like they did in 2017. I mean, Press Taylor, they don't have an offensive coordinator. It's like Doug, and then all the assistants are like a collaboration. It's like, the Sixers GM role. It doesn't work. I think they need to find a strict, solid offensive coordinator and put him in that role and let him work with Doug more so than, having 5 heads trying to come up with game plans, and some people trying to work on like, mechanical things. It's just, I think it's too many heads in one area, and it's not, you see it not working out, putting up, 17 points and like 19 points. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, and as far as Carson Wentz goes, you have like 10 different guys telling him, 10 different things, and you really can't grow as a quarterback, let alone like a person, if you have way too many different people telling you different things. You really got to sit down. You got to get one guy to really help him out, because this can't keep continuing. These are rookie mistakes that he's making, and he's a veteran quarterback.
You're right. So
I did see something that was encouraging. Now, this might, it was a comparison of the 2020 season thus far to the 2003 Eagles season thus far.
Oh my God, were you guys even alive when that happened?
I was an infant, but I saw the post, and it was both Carson Wentz's and Donovan McNabb's 5th season in the NFL. Now, it compared Carson Wentz's completion percentage was 59% to Donovan's 45%. Wentz had 512 passing yards to Donovan's 334 passing yards. Carson Wentz has 2 touchdowns and 4 picks to Donovan's 0 touchdowns and 3 picks. Wentz has a passer rating of 64.4 to Donovan's 41.4. Both teams started 0-2. The 2003 Eagles finished 12-4 and the number 1 seed in the NFC. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen this year. And, that 03 Eagles team was significantly better as a team than this Eagles team. So I don't think we can expect them to go 12-2 the rest of the year. But when I did see that, it did make me kind of feel a little bit better, seeing that, we know how good Donovan was throughout his career in the NFL. To see Carson have bad, but it's definitely bad, but better stats than Donovan, and Donovan to still be as good as he was, it does make me feel a little bit better about the whole terrible 0-2 start and pretty bad first 2 games for him.
The issue that I see with that is that the year before that 2003 season, they were in the NFC Championship game. So
all right,
there's a big disparity between going 9-7 and sneaking in on what was it, 3 division wins, and then losing your quarterback in the playoff game.
They're definitely different.
I see what you're saying, but this is a much more grim situation.
They're definitely different, but it made me feel a little bit better, and that might just be my false optimism in this team, but it made me feel better. So,
I lived through that, and I distinctly remember. So in 2003, early on in the season, Andy Reid wanted to make Donovan McNabb a pure pocket passer. And I just saw the eyebrows go up like, exactly. That sounds awfully familiar. Like,
exactly.
So, and then he struggled, and McDonovan had awkward mechanics too. Like, you saw a lot of the
very weird
passes that he threw that hit guys, in the ground. The only difference is when you throw it at the ground, no one can intercept it,
Exactly.
And, I think, and then what did Andy Reid do to help get the Eagles out of that? Well, you hear about the 3-headed snake. They had Deuce Staley, Correll Buckholder, and Brian Westbrook. Yeah. 2 of those running backs I just mentioned are amongst the best in Eagles history, and Correll Buckholder was a pretty solid player.
Besides injuries, yeah.
But, and I just mentioned before, let's just, why don't we just, start running the ball more? And we're going to start this week, and we're going to move on to the Bengals now, because the Bengals against their division rival Browns got completely gashed on the ground by Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I almost said Lamar Hunt, the guy who used to own the Chiefs, but yeah. They got completely gashed on the ground. I think what you saw in that game is a good blueprint on how to not only beat the Bengals, but when you have a quarterback that's struggling, I think it's a good way to help him out, because look, Baker
looked great on Thursday.
Looked good because he wasn't expected to carry the entire team on his shoulders.
Right. It
And
wasn't
I
until
think
the end he almost screwed the game up, but for the most part throughout he was good.
and I think we can sit here and say that Carson Wentz is a much better quarterback
Yeah.
than Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And look, like it's so infuriating to me when people say, "Oh, when you're a team that runs the ball a lot with a good quarterback, it's you're using the running game as a crutch." No, this is football,
Like Tom
It
Brady,
is
right?
football.
Like,
you
Exactly.
know.
It's football.
And I think this is where when I see all I saw this week was bench Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts. Look, the only way you're going to bench Carson Wentz is if he's freelancing to the point where Doug's calling runs on like obvious running situations. He's changing it to pass because he wants to play hero ball. At that point, you take his helmet away and you say, look, you're doing things your way. It ain't working. We're going to do things my way.
And when he
And
starts going like rogue.
And I don't think that's happening. I think it's
No.
more of like him and Doug aren't in sync. And I think if you build a game plan where you're running the ball and then you're going to Carson saying like, hey, okay, in these passing situations, what do you want to do? Because the Eagles actually were not that bad last week on third down. I think they're like 7 of 12. They weren't
Something
that
like that.
atrocious on third down.
No.
It was really like, to me, where I thought they really just screwed up and it's the key moment of the game was when they get the ball back to start the third quarter against the Rams. They're running the ball, they're driving down the field, and on first down, they call that play action rollout. No one was open, and Wentz tries to force it to J-Jaw. Like, just keep running the ball.
Yeah, that was an unnecessary point to throw it. Carson makes a bad throw and a bad read there.
And it looks like,
it wasn't
here's
a
the
smart
thing.
throw.
And here's the thing. It looked like Wentz changed the play at the line of scrimmage, so it might have been a run.
Might have been because it should have been a run. You were moving the ball with shorter passes and great runs, and to just try to force in the end zone right there was not the time. You didn't have to.
That was the kill shot of that game, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah, because then the Rams got a touchdown, so it was a 14-point swing, and the game was over.
Yeah.
And I think especially – oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Ethan. Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, so especially I think you really have to focus on the ground game as far as the Eagles goes because the Bengals are without Geno Atkins. I mean, that's one of the top defensive tackles in the league. And you really saw what happened against the Browns there. I mean, going back to that running game, you just got to establish it. If it doesn't work out, you can't just start gunning the ball like Doug typically does. You just
like 45
really
times
establish the run. I mean, it's a tale as old as football. You just got to do it.
Yeah, and I think with Carson this week especially because the week one it was inexcusable how many times he threw the ball because they were controlling the game for the most part. Whereas last week the run got them back into the game. Like not only it's helping you move the ball on offense, but your defense is struggling against the Rams. And if you would have gotten that touchdown when you got that ball back, I think it would have just brought so much life back to that defense.
Maybe they force a turnover.
Exactly. Like it is what it is. So I want to so we're going to preview this Bengals game. So I have down here the number one thing because this is such a brand new Bengals team guys compared to last year. I have it stopping Joe Burrow as the number one thing they need to do because he looked good the last 2 weeks. Like I thought a lot of people were ready to be like, oh, he's going to struggle because their offensive line's so bad, and their offensive line is really bad. But he's tough.
Well.
Yeah, he's tougher than he's tougher than a $2 steak because he's getting some big hits laid on him early on.
Crushed.
But he still threw 3 touchdowns last week. And I look at Joe Burrow, and then I read this week that the Bengals want to air the ball out more. Through 2 games, the Bengals only have 1 play in the air that's gone for longer than 20 yards. They're last in the league.
Yeah, you saw how LSU's offense operated. It was a ton of big plays all season long.
And you know that the only way for him to be able to complete deep passes downfield, one of the ways, is they're going to have to buy him time. And I think this could be a very good week for the defensive line to start getting on the stat sheet and building up their confidence. and uh, hiding Nate Gary's helmet from him. I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's
I don't know. Because
yeah.
I'm
I
saying,
mean,
like, blitz, blitz. Oh, the Eagles need a blitz war. That's their problem. And then you see them blitz, and Nate Gary's running into Fletcher Cox's ass
yeah,
instead of
Nate
running in the
Gary.
open lane. Like, I mean, come on. It's just, I mean, this defensive line. I think this defensive line is as good as it's advertised. I just think you need the other pieces to start stepping up. I think once they start getting sacks and creating more pressures, I think it's going to it's going to build the secondary's confidence and maybe the linebackers' confidence. Now, like, what do you think needs to change this week, Michael? Like, what do you see the Eagles doing differently on defense to help them out?
Well, I think it's a little scary that Fletcher Cox is going to be a game time decision on Sunday. Not looking forward to potentially missing out on him. But what I think this team needs to do a lot more of is, I think that the front four need to get home more, whether that is coming up with more creative blitzing. I think the bad Bengals offensive line should help get more pressure on Joe Burrow because, the D-backs besides Slay I don't think they played very well. Nickel Roby-Coleman constantly got torched on Sunday against the Rams. And we are a very pro Cravon LeBlanc podcast. And he only played 3 snaps on Sunday, which is something I never like to see. I want to see him get on the field a little more. And, whether his assignment will be John Ross or Tyler Boyd, maybe just him being more involved. And I think the defensive line taking advantage of the very poor Bengals offensive line should be a key to not giving up 30-plus points.
Yeah, you really just got to give, just like John said, the defensive line just time to get that pressure. I mean,
yeah,
there's some stars on that defensive line, and you can't expect them to get the quarterback in a second. I mean, the ball. You look at Jared Goff, the ball was out in 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds. What are you going to do with that? You really got to step up. You really got to, you just really got to bear down and just give them that extra 2 seconds to get to the quarterback, make those throws harder, and that's really how you win this game. I mean, you can't have a repeat of last week where Goff goes 13 of 13 and they just look like they're the best show on turf all of a sudden again. I mean,
and whatever side of the field Darius Slay's on, he always locks down whoever the top receiver is.
That'll be
Robert Woods did not have a good game last week.
Because, yeah, exactly. Robert Woods, who I think he's a top 10 receiver in the league.
He's not bad. Yeah.
The only thing the only success he really found was when on that end around.
Right.
Yeah, it was running the ball. He had his best yards.
Yeah. So, I mean, there it is. And they look at Joe Mixon, and I think Joe Mixon is better than any of the running backs on the Rams or the Washington football team for that matter. Yeah. And like, even though statistically you look at him, he's not impressive, but when you watch him play, he's probably the guy who's, the biggest victim of having a bad offensive line block for him.
No, yeah. Joe Mixon's definitely a good runner.
And they need to shut down that run and force Joe Burrow to make mistakes because he is only a rookie.
Yeah, he's bound to have a rookie game. Like he just is just bound to have a bad game. You hope it's this week that he just, makes mistakes, bad reads, double coverage, potentially some turnovers.
Now, one thing I really liked this week, and I'm not a big Jim Schwartz guy, I really like the way he took ownership for the loss because he's so stubborn and he comes off very smug.
Yeah.
And he was like, I did a bad job. It was all me. My fault. Blame me. And I think that defense is going to come out more fired up. And I think what you're going to see is they're going to be rocking. They're going to be getting after Joe Burrow. I think they're going to be laying some hits. They're going to be a lot better. But to your point, though, too, with Nickel Roby-Coleman, like they brought him in, that was kind of a big signing for them.
To be the slot guy.
And he's kind of fallen flat. Like we don't know if it's the system. We don't know if, I don't know. I didn't know much about him before he came here. Like, is he more of a zone?
He's always been the slot corner for wherever he's been. I mean, he was the corner that infamous no call pass interference in the Saints game. he's always been like a decent player. He's never been bad really where he's been at. It's almost like Golden Tate kind of, which
He's
is
not strapped
weird
in.
to say, but
He's not
yeah,
crazy.
I wish it would. Exactly. I really want Cravon to get more snaps, but I don't think he will.
Well, what we have noticed in the past with the Eagles is when they make a signing like this and they struggle, they're very quick to offload them. Like you saw how Andrew Sendejo went
Right.
from playing 90 snaps a game to persona non grata when he
Same
was
with LJ
struggling.
Ford.
Same with and even like Orlando Scandrick was brought in for what, 2 weeks and then was cut after a bad game. Like it's stuff they do that when they bring in guys and they don't work out right away.
Zach Brown.
Zach Brown.
J.J. last year.
Yeah, last year J.J. they brought him back and they were like, yeah, he's awful. Goodbye.
So I kind of gave my idea of how to getting the offense back on track. Do you guys have anything you want to add to it? Do you disagree with me? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, I like a lot better how Ertz played on Sunday compared to week 1. I think, he needs to have a Zach Ertz type of game where it's around 10 catches, close to 100 yards and a score. That's like, that's his typical like great game is what he does. I think we should be in store for one of those this week. And I want to see Deshaun Jackson like be involved. He was involved a little bit and he had some nice catches and stuff, and he was open and maybe not getting thrown to as much, but I don't know. There's something weird about him this year. I don't know if there's like a disconnect with him and Carson or if it's a disconnect with like him and Doug. It just something seems a little off with him this year, and I hope that can get on track for Sunday.
Ethan?
Yeah, I agree with the Deshaun Jackson statement. I really think that's an explosive player, and you're not really utilizing him to his full extent whatsoever. I mean, yeah, Carson did miss him on a couple, wide open, deep routes, but I don't think I've seen him catch a slant or anything down the middle of the field. It's everything seems like it's just one-on-one coverage outside, for a quick 5-yard hit. But that's not the type of receiver he is. He's a big play guy, so you're really not utilizing him to his full extent. Going back to just the offense getting back to normal, really. I think Zach Ertz, again, also Dallas Goedert, they both have to have huge games against rookie linebackers down the middle of the field. And
good point.
And Miles Sanders, just got to establish the run game. You hold on to the ball. I mean, just like he did after the first carry, and you'll win the game. I mean, I just really hope they don't prepare. I just really hope that they prepare correctly for this time, that they don't underestimate them like they did Washington, like they did. I mean, the Rams,
the Rams might be good again,
but you really just gotta play fundamental football. Don't do anything so crazy. Utilize your guys to their abilities. Don't I mean, it's really not that hard.
And another thing I was surprised about is when I looked at the snap counts from last week, Greg Ward only played 18% of the offensive snaps. Like, I know Greg Ward isn't some amazing receiver, but it's like he was the guy that Carson relied on down the stretch last year to get into the postseason. I don't know why he's not on the field more, making, running routes like he did the final drive of the Washington game last year, where, he had like 5 catches on the final drive. I don't know why he's not involved more. I don't know why he's not on the field more. I think we should see him more this week without Rieger, but it's just some things just don't make sense when players seem to have had a good connection with the team and he's not on the field.
Well, the Eagles ran so much 12 personnel over the first 2 games that, they're not going to run a traditional, they're not running like 11 personnel where they're going to have 3 receivers on the field. Now, I think this week with Rieger out and Alshon Jeffrey not ready to play, I think Greg Ward should definitely get looks at the other receiver position because
more than Ortega.
Look, they're going to keep forcing J-Jaw. And the more that he's just not going to get targeted. I mean, like, you're just literally helping the Bengals defense out by just putting him out there and not looking his way. Because they could just put a linebacker. They could put like a safety or a linebacker on him in coverage. And then they can put a corner on Goddard, a corner on Ertz. They could have a safety cover Miles Sanders out of the backfield. It's like I think my friend Josh would joke about saying this guy's like a trash can. Like it's literally just putting a trash can out in the field. He's not doing anything.
He's the equivalent of throwing Jalen Hurts out there, to play receiver. I mean, it's the same thing. Like he's just
the guy that's it's awful, especially the way you see Metcalf play. It hurts every time.
Yeah.
I had a prediction this week. I texted Gino. I said, I have a prediction this week. It's going to be a tie game in like the second quarter. The Eagles will be driving, and they're going to run one of those Jalen Hurts plays where Hurts is going to throw the ball and it's going to be picked.
Oh God.
And they're going to be moving the ball well, and then it's just going to be stupid.
They're going to run a stupid Hurts play.
Yeah, it's just so dumb. So I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to be positive.
Very hard to be positive with this team right now.
It's very hard to be positive. So before we go talk about the other games this week in the NFL, what's your prediction for Sunday?
Go ahead,
Michael. Sorry.
You can go.
Put me on the spot. I mean, I'm gonna go a little bit. After all what we said, I'm gonna go 31-21 and Eagles win. I really think that I hope this is going to be a good cleanup game for them. I really, 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 really hope that they can finally, calm down. You're 0-2, win a game, and then get back on track. But we'll see. I don't know.
I'm going to go. I think we might see a defensive score, or at least a big turnover that puts us in like a very easy touchdown spot. I'm going to go Eagles 27, Bengals 13.
Okay. I can't pick this team to win a game until I see them make changes. I know. Yeah, I know. I can't pick them because I just don't want to.
Wow.
I just don't want to be enraged anymore. I'm going to say Bengals 24, Eagles 20. 24-20.
Oh,
I hope that's
the worst.
I hope I'm wrong. I'm crossing my fingers.
I don't know what I'll do if you're right.
So let's talk. So let's move on from the Eagles and let's talk about something that's less frustrating, and that's the other games this week. So I'm looking at some of the lines here. Is there any games?
Hold on. You say it's less frustrating, and I got to watch Atlanta completely. Soil themselves against Dallas like that. Maybe it's not less frustrating.
As I said, we're trying to watch anything that's less frustrating than the Eagles right now. Is there any games, Michael, that you're looking at for week 3 that you think are a good play?
I think if you're going to bet on some things, I was looking at the lines. I think Colts -11 versus the Jets. I think the Colts had a nice win last week against the Vikings. I think they continue on that stretch. I think the Jets just flat out stink. I think they're terrible. I like the Colts at home against the Jets. I also like Tampa Bay on the road in Denver with Jeff Driscoll. I like Tampa Bay -5.5. I like that a lot. I think Tom Brady has a nice day, and you get Mike Evans involved, and I think Gronk finally provides a little bit of something, and I think that Tampa will win by probably 10+ in Denver.
So I'm going with a little bit of a surprising lock of the week. I'm going with the Giants +4, and that's solely based off the injuries of the 49ers. I know people are still going to say, the 49ers are a good team, but you don't have your starting quarterback. You lost George Kittle for that game. You lost Nick Bosa. You lost Solomon Thomas. You lost your top 2 running backs. That's a really banged up team. And the Giants, I mean,
Sure.
They are what they are, but I think you can sneak out a win, by a field goal or so.
No Saquon?
No Saquon is true. But I don't know much about Nick Mullins. I mean,
were you at Giants practice this week, Ethan? Diving into the mud after losing?
I
got fired up to this game against the Niners.
Not getting fired up for that. I mean, I hope they don't win, but that'll be one of my locks.
You better hope the Giants don't win because the Eagles play the Niners next week. You want to play an angry Niners team losing to to Joe Judge.
And then another lock that I have is the Seahawks -4.5. I really think that they'll.
That was my other lock of the week. I forgot to say it was Seattle against Dallas.
Yeah, I don't really think that's going to be much of a contest. I hope it's really not either. But
Russell Wilson's going to win MVP this year. He's finally going to get votes.
The over-under for that game I see right now is currently at 55.5, so they're expecting that to be a slugfest of a game.
Yep.
So I'm looking at this week's games. I'm looking now. Here's something I find very fishy. So the Bears are on the road in Atlanta, and they're getting their
game.
So the Falcons are
0-2,
laying 3 points to the Bears at home. I find that very. I think you should take Atlanta here, even after that debacle of a game against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because if they go to this game and they just look soulless, then Dan Quinn his days are numbered. He's gone.
Yeah.
And I can't really see I mean, this is the kind of game where Mitch Trubisky is going to come in and he's going to look bad.
The Bears are the most fraudulent 2-0 team I think I've ever seen. So
that's what I mean.
Yeah, they are not that good. Not at all.
And if I were to
I really don't know. I mean, after what I saw last week, that was pretty pathetic.
And if I were to go for my lock of the week, I'm going to take New England against the Raiders. Because I think New England should be mad at the way they lost last week. And there's so much hype around the Raiders right now. I feel like they're due for a little bit of a letdown this week.
It's going to be a good game, though.
Yeah, and I think the Raiders they're definitely trending in the right direction. But I still think they're like a year away. They need to add another couple more players.
I agree with that. I could give my upset of the week. I was looking, and I don't know. I think my upset of the week is going to be Detroit +5.5 in Arizona. There's a lot of hype around the Cardinals.
It's a very big upset.
I think the Cardinals, I think they're good. I think Kyler Murray's good. I think the Cardinals are good, but there's a lot of hype around them. And I think Matt Stafford is a quarterback that does have potential that you wouldn't be surprised he throws for like 500 yards in a game like this. I like Detroit +5.5 in Arizona. I would almost go as far to say that they're going to win outright. They're going to win the game on Sunday.
Wow, that's a very bold prediction. Ethan, do you have anything as bold as Michael, or
not to that extent? I mean, it's pretty bold, but I got the Packers +3 on Sunday Night Football against the Saints, and I know the Saints are going to be looking. Yeah, well, that's true, but no, I don't believe
Michael Thomas
that game either. So the Packers run the ball really well. Aaron Jones went completely off against the Lions. I really think that this is going to be kind of like a welcome back Aaron Rodgers type game. He was back last year. It was the NFC Championship game, but I really think that the Saints are not what they were for the last few years.
Drew Brees is a fraud.
Drew Brees is just there's something about this year. I don't get good vibes from that Saints team. I really think that the Packers +3, that's definitely going to happen.
Okay, and my upset of the week, I'm going to take the Chiefs +3.5 against the Ravens. I think that in this situation, I know the Ravens right now, them and the Chiefs are probably the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And while I know a lot of people are hyping up, the third year for Lamar Jackson, I think this is kind of a statement game for Patrick Mahomes because they beat everybody there is to beat last year except the Ravens in the playoffs because they lost to the Titans.
Right.
So I feel like this is going to be another notch in his belt. I foresee them winning by a field goal. When they played the Chargers last week, I thought they were playing because they were looking ahead to this game.
Yeah, they were very slow to start that game out.
And I think they're ready to play this game. So I'm going to take the Chiefs getting 3.5, from the Ravens.
On Monday Night Football. I think we're going to see a very similar game as we did
Rams.
A few years back, Rams Chiefs, when the Rams went to the Super Bowl and they lit it up on Monday night. I think we'll see a very similar game upcoming.
I agree. So we're almost done. We only have 5 minutes left. So, Michael or Ethan, do you guys have any good shows or movies out that you would recommend to our listeners who are currently quarantined, or maybe they're not quarantined, they're just looking for a good program? Do you guys have anything in mind?
Ethan, what was that show you were talking about yesterday? The 100 or something? What were you?
Oh, the 100 on Netflix, yeah. They're about to get their 7th and final season on Netflix, and I started watching that show about a year and a half ago. If you're like into sci-fi and you're into kind of, action sci-fi on Netflix, it's a very good watch. I would highly recommend that show.
Yeah. There's this movie that came out that looks very intriguing. I know some theaters are opening up and stuff. It's called Tenet, and it seems very interesting. I don't know too much about it, but I've heard very good reviews from it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is really good. I'm looking to go see it, and if people can go see it, I think they should try.
Nice. And if you're a fan of crime and murder, I would recommend right now it's on one of the HBO apps. It's called I'll Be Gone in the Dark. It's a documentary on the Golden State Killer. It's like really fascinating.
Oh.
And really creepy.
Okay.
So I would recommend if you're looking for like a good murder documentary, I'd recommend that. I don't know if you guys saw the Ted Bundy tapes or the documentary. You should. That's pretty good too. And the one they did on the Unabomber.
The Unabomber.
That was before my time. That's how long ago that
sure.
was. But dude, it's crazy. You gotta watch it. You would watch it, you could be like, dude, this is so messed up. We're like, oh my god, this is insane. This guy lives in a cabin in Wyoming. He builds bombs that he'll either hitchhike 500 miles to a college professor or doctor's office and put the bomb there to go kill them.
Jeez.
It's crazy. Ted Kaczynski. Look it up.
Sounds interesting.
So it looks like we're out of time. Is there anything else you guys want to get any advice for this weekend or anything you'd recommend? It's fall. It's nice out. It's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be really chilly, but it's going to be, good shorts and hoodie weather.
My favorite weather. I don't know. Just find a good place to watch the Phillies maybe sneak into the playoffs. Hopefully by next week we're talking about some wild card games going on.
Yeah, for my well-being and for the well-being of many people in the Philadelphia area, I just think that we all need to really watch the Phillies, but don't be too optimistic, because if they win one game here and then they lose, the last game of the season, I don't really know what I'm going to do. So. And the Eagles, we all just got to, take some stress relievers. Just, everything will work out. Let's
go on a walk before the game.
Go on a walk. There you go.
Go on a walk, drink a beer.
Yeah.
Well, you guys aren't old enough yet. So drink a Pepsi. Yeah. Eat some snacks. Well, okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time. And it was a great show. We all did a great job here. And this is John signing off. Say bye, guys. Say bye to the loyal viewers, listeners, however you're consuming the podcast. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye.
See you next week.